Okay, let's unpack this. We're taking a truly special deep dive today into what we're calling Susan's World. Our mission really is to explore Susan Benford's family tree, dig up some really captivating family stories, and sort of place them in their bigger historical picture. And then we'll look at how modern science, especially DNA, is just fundamentally changing how we trace these ancestral lines. Think of it like a time travel journey, guided by old records and, well, our own genes.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we've got quite a stack of sources, really fascinating stuff, everything from very detailed genealogy reports like that Ancestors of Susan Benford PDF you mentioned, right through to personal family notes, old census data, those crucial immigration manifests, and even, recent DNA analysis. It's this rich mix that lets us connect dots across, generations and continents.
So where do we start? Let's begin right at the top with Susan Benford herself. Susan, daughter of Timothy Bartholomew Benford Jr. and Marilyn Fabula, married to Eric Young. Even right there, in that immediate family, you kind of sense a blend of backgrounds starting to take shape.
That's right. And if we just step back one generation to Susan's grandparents, we really see those roots digging in, especially here in New Jersey. On her father's side, you've got Timothy Benford and Margaret Veronica Luzu. And Margaret, she was born in Newark, New Jersey, records say 1912. Though, interestingly, the Social Security Death Index lists this as 1913. It's a small thing, but it highlights how even basic facts can have these little quirks in genealogy research.
Right, those tiny discrepancies that make you look twice.
And
And on Susan's mother's side,
her grandparents were Michael George Fabula and Nellie Helen McCarr. Michael Fabula, he was very much based in Bayonne, New Jersey, worked for General Motors over in Linden.
so even just these initial generations are already telling a story, deeply woven into American life, right? Especially that New Jersey industrial scene.
Exactly. It's more than just names. It's the quiet background hum of families building lives while the country was changing so fast around them.
Okay, here's where it gets, I think, really compelling. When we step back another generation to Susan's great-grandparents, wow, the migration stories really start to pop. Let's talk about Arthur Joseph Benford, known as Pop, and his wife, Ellie Lynch. Arthur's story is, well, it's a fantastic example of family lore versus the paper trail.
It really is. Arthur Joseph Benford's origins, according to the records we have, are in Essex, England. His 1911 immigration form specifically notes Plaistow. He was baptized in Essex, too. Now, compare that to the family stories, the ones passed down through Tim Benford, born in 1940. He paints this incredibly vivid picture.
It was quite a picture. Tim remembered his grandfather, Arthur, saying he was born in Leeds, England, maybe 1882 or 83. And the story goes he ran away young, 14 or 15, joined the military, never saw his family again. Served in these elite British units, Coldstream Guards even, and get this, supposedly fought in the Boer War, was even a chum of a young Winston Churchill, plus time in India, stationed at Buckingham Palace. It's almost like a movie script.
It absolutely sounds like a grand adventure, doesn't it? But when you put that rich story next to the documented facts, you see something crucial. Oral history is so valuable, it captures the spirit, the perceived truth within a family. But it can be shaped by memory, maybe a bit of wishful thinking. Records, though, they often give a different view, maybe more ordinary sometimes, but verifiable. In Arthur's case, the records consistently show his birth date as October 28, 1878, baptism in 1883. And the birthplace is always Essex or Plaistow, not Leeds. So the timeline, the location, they shift quite a bit. His immigration record, too, from the SS Cedric in 1911. It even spells his name slightly differently, Benford. Little details like that.
And what about that oil painting, The Honeymoon in India from 1907? But the marriage record is 1911. How do those pieces fit?
That's a great point. It shows how family stories can sometimes, romanticize things or maybe compress timelines. Their marriage record from Aldershot, England, it's very clear, January 1911. At the time, Arthur was working as a butler, and his father, Jesse Benford, was listed as a corn chandler, which was someone who dealt in grain and feed, a pretty common job back then.
A butler and a corn chandler's son, quite different from the military adventurer image.
Exactly. So that painting, maybe it captured a feeling or perhaps a later trip, but it almost certainly wasn't their 1907 honeymoon. Once they were in America, Arthur and Ellie settled in Bayonne, New Jersey. And Arthur worked his way up. Brakeman, railway worker, oil pumper, eventually a superintendent for Best Foods.
Wow. Best Food. So he built a solid career here.
He did, and they had 9 children together, really established a new life far from England and Ireland.
A really compelling journey indeed. And Ellie Lynch, his wife, tell us about her path.
Ellie's story starts January 2nd, 1886, in Macroom, County Cork, Ireland. specifically a place called Clonfillip in Inniscarra. Her father, John Lynch, was a plumber. Her mother was Kathleen Cotter. Ellie's immigration is interesting, too, because it happened in two steps. First, she came alone in 1910. On the SS Cedric, same ship Arthur later took. She was going to join an uncle in Bayonne.
Okay, so she came first.
Yes. Then, 5 years later, in 1915, she arrived again. This time on the SS New York. And she wasn't alone. She had two of their young children with her, Jessie and Mary, coming to finally join Arthur, who was already established.
Imagine that second journey with two little kids. It really speaks to the determination involved, doesn't it? Building a life across the ocean.
Absolutely. The sheer will required.
So we've got these interwoven journeys from Western Europe.
Indeed. We encounter Mihaly Luzu. You also see it spelled Luzu or Luzo. He came from Bezded, Subolcs, Hungary, an area that's now called Tisa Bezded. Mihaly immigrated in 1905. He was coming to join his father, who'd actually made the trip earlier, back in 1902, and settled in Perth Amboy, New Jersey.
So chain migration, basically. Father comes first, then the son.
Exactly. And it's noted his mother tongue was Magyar, Hungarian. There's a sadder note later in his life. Records indicate he spent time in an insane asylum. It adds a layer of hardship to his story.
That's tough. And his wife, Mary Popovich.
She was also from Hungary. She immigrated just a few years after him in 1908.
Now let's shift focus to Susan's maternal side, the Fadula-Makar lines. This takes us even further east, right into Central and Eastern Europe.
Then there's John Joseph Fabula. His story is, well, it's quite remarkable. His family came from Fulian in the Saros region of Slovakia. Now it's Fulianka. They immigrated in January 1885. But here's the thing. John Joseph was born in the United States just weeks after they landed. It implies his mother, Anna Antol, made that incredibly long, difficult journey across the Atlantic while heavily pregnant.
Wow. Talk about a dramatic start to life in America. That's incredible resilience.
It really is. And finally, on that side, we have Nicholas Makar and Emilia Oleszewski. Nicholas Makar was born in Poland, though the records are a bit conflicting about his exact origin. Sometimes it says Austria-Hungary, sometimes Ukraine. It reflects those shifting borders in Eastern Europe at the time.
Right. History wasn't drawing neat lines on the map back then.
Not at all. Susan's mother, Marilyn, actually remembered him as being Czech and a skilled horseman. And what's truly amazing, he lived to be 102 years old.
102. Incredible longevity.
It really is. His wife, Emilia Oleszewski, she also immigrated from Poland. So taken together, these stories just paint this amazing picture of the diversity and, frankly, the sheer grit of the immigrant waves that built so much of America.
It's powerful stuff. Thinking about these individuals, their journeys, the lives they carved out, let's maybe step back just a bit further in England with Arthur Benford's parents. Those little details that give us snapshots.
Yeah, looking at Arthur's father, Jesse Albert Benford, and his mother, Mary Ann Jane Millwood, their occupations give us these tiny glimpses into their world in England before Arthur left. Jesse, as we mentioned, was listed as a carman, a papermaker, and that corn chandler. These weren't just jobs, they defined life back then, you know? They give us context for the world Arthur came from.
Absolutely. And then layered on top of the records, you have those incredibly vivid, colorful family anecdotes. Many came from Tim Benford's emails, right?
Yeah.
These are the stories that really make the family tree come alive. They show personalities, struggles, maybe even some eccentricities.
Oh, they definitely do. Tim mentioned his father, Timothy Benford Jr., was really close to his brothers. Benny, that was Jesse and Mickey, who was Michael William.
And Mickey Benford's World War II story, that's really something else. He served on the USS Emmons, destroyer, later a minesweeper. He survived D-Day, the Normandy invasion, which is huge in itself. But then in the Pacific, Okinawa, the ship was hit hard by kamikaze attacks.
Just overwhelmed. And Mickey was actually blown off the ship into the water, severely injured. He needed skin grafts and apparently had a disfigured arm for the rest of his life. It's such a stark reminder of the personal cost of those huge global conflicts.
How war reaches right into individual families and changes everything.
Precisely. And that experience led to another story that's just almost unbelievable. Mickey apparently brought home unexploded ordnance like bombs and even a Japanese mortar shell as souvenirs.
No way, souvenirs.
Yeah. And Tim, Susan's father, remembered playing with them as a kid. It's just mind-boggling from today's perspective. Shows how different things were even after the war, the sort of casual danger that could just be there.
That's definitely a story you wouldn't forget.
Yeah.
And then there are the lighter, maybe more relatable family tales.
Right, like the classic family politics story. Tim and Marilyn chose a particular niece to be a flower girl at their wedding. Apparently, this really upset Uncle Charlie, who felt his daughter should have been chosen. And the story goes, Uncle Charlie never quite forgave them. It's that kind of universal family drama, isn't it?
Totally relatable. But maybe the most outlandish story, the one that really jumps out.
Has to be Great Uncle Bat Lynch. According to the family lore, he blew the brains out of the monkey in my grandfather's speakeasy.
Wait, hold on. A monkey in a speakeasy?
No.
During Prohibition, that sounds like something straight out of fiction.
It paints this incredibly vivid, if totally bizarre, picture, doesn't it, of that era, the characters involved. These anecdotes, whether we can back them up with records or just see them as amazing stories, they really show how history, big events like WWII, Prohibition gets tangled up with very personal lives. They tell us not just who people were, but how they lived, loved, maybe cause a bit of chaos through really monumental times.
Which brings us to a really important point. How do we actually verify these incredible stories, especially the wilder ones? And what about those research brick walls, the stone walls, where the paper trail just disappears? This is where DNA analysis becomes just such a crucial part of the puzzle in modern genealogy.
Exactly right. DNA isn't just about health anymore. It's become this incredibly powerful tool, almost a secret weapon for genealogists. It can confirm connections where the documents are maybe missing or ambiguous, or it can uncover links you never would have suspected just from paper. It lets us go beyond what the written record alone can tell us.
So for Susan Benford, what specific DNA links turned up? What do they reveal?
Well, there were some really significant findings. For instance, strong DNA connections were found linking Susan to siblings of Arthur Philemon Benford, remember Arthur Joseph's father, connections to Jacob Richard and Lydia Ruth Benford, and even to their parents, Jesse Albert Benford and Marianne Jane Millwood. This provides really compelling biological evidence for Arthur Joseph's lineage, helping solidify his place in that family tree, despite, some of the conflicting details in early records about his life.
So the DNA acts like a confirmation, cutting through some of the fog of old records or family stories.
It absolutely can. It doesn't just fill gaps. Sometimes it clarifies things or even potentially corrects long-held beliefs. It proves connections paper alone might never reveal.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Were there other intriguing DNA findings for Susan's family?
Yes, quite a few interesting threads emerged. There's the case of a DNA cousin, Tracy Mannion Cogdill. She's descended from Arthur Joseph Benford's daughter, Eileen. Now, Tracy's DNA ethnicity estimate shows only Irish and Scottish roots. But Susan's DNA shows Irish, but no Scottish.
Okay. What might that suggest?
Well, it's speculative, but it might subtly hint that Arthur himself passed down some Irish DNA, perhaps more than his English records suggest. It could point towards older, maybe unrecorded Irish connections in his own background that traditional English genealogy hasn't picked up. It's a clue for potential future research.
Interesting, like a genetic breadcrumb trail.
Kind of, yeah. We also see DNA links connecting Susan to the Earwicker Millwood line. That's Marianne Jane Millwood's family, Arthur's mother. This comes through another DNA match, Sally Hennessy, who shares Germanic Europe ethnicity markers with Susan, strengthening that branch of the tree.
So it's like triangulating using biology. These matches are connecting dots that might have seemed lost in time otherwise.
Precisely. It's incredibly powerful for breaking through those research stone walls we mentioned, where the documents just run out.
And did the DNA shed light on her mother's side too?
Yeah.
The Eastern European lines.
It did, potentially. There are connections pointing towards the Fialka family via a match named Anna Marie Zerlinden, whose ancestor came from Lekartovce, Slovakia. This could link back to Anna Fialka on the Fabula side, and another possible link is to the Popovich family. Through Riley Burke, whose ancestor Catherine Popovich was also from Hungary and, significantly, lived in Bayonne, New Jersey, just like Susan's ancestors.
Wow, so living in the same place, possibly connected by DNA. That's compelling.
These aren't definite proofs on their own sometimes, but they are strong biological echoes. They offer really valuable clues that can guide where to look next in the records. The implications for the future of genealogy are just immense. It's this combination, painstaking document research paired with cutting-edge DNA science that's allowing for this unprecedented level of detail and certainty. It really does turn vague ideas about ancestors into concrete, verifiable links. It brings these people, their journeys, their connections to life in a way that just wasn't possible even a decade or two ago.
What an incredible journey we've really been on today, exploring Susan's world. From the blend of cultures right here in New Jersey to those transatlantic voyages from England and Ireland, and then tracing those Eastern European roots back to Hungary, Slovakia, Poland. It's just this amazing tapestry woven with stories of resilience, adventure, everyday struggles, and that quiet determination to build something new.
It really is. And what's truly fascinating, I think, is how tracing just one family's journey like this doesn't just reveal their personal history. It becomes a sort of microcosm.
Hmm.
You see patterns of human migration, incredible adaptability, the profound way that huge global events ripple down to affect individual lives. It gives you this unique lens to understand ourselves, maybe our place in the bigger human story. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What stories, what connections, what surprises are waiting to be uncovered in your own family tree?